Right, welcome in everyone to the GZDoom is awesome panel. So collected a bunch of devs working in that engine to make their own games, which you said that 10 years ago or 5 years ago, for people to wonder what the fuck you're talking about. So today we have a really good mix. We've got Eris here from Valkyrie. We have Nash Muhandes of Darkadia. We have Sanya Waffles and Metal Neon of Project Absentia. We have Sgt Mark of Brutal Fate, and the faceless one is Zan of Hedon, or Hedon Blood.
Hello.
Zan, we'll start with you. So obviously you've got a long history with the engine. You've already made a game in it, but with your current project, how did you decide to stick with it, and why?
Well, if it worked for the first, it should work for the second. But no, GZDoom is a great engine if you want to make a retro shooter, okay? There's no other engine that pretty much serves all the tools that you need to make a retro shooter, so it really makes sense. And there's also the thing that relates to my history with game design, which is basically zero. I went into GZDoom knowing absolutely nothing about coding, nothing about game design or anything. And, because it's such a nice and easy tool to get into, it was accessible for me to actually put my idea into action. Because, I was like one of those guys who had the idea for the perfect game, but no means to actually implement it. And it was really hard. When I picked the engine up, it felt like bashing my head against a brick wall. But I kept bashing it and clenching my teeth, and I slowly learned how to code and how to use it. And it's like it. Having all the documentation and all the forum help and all the, the very easy to use level editor and all that stuff, you can get into it. It's a really reliable engine. I mean,
yeah, well, because it's got a long history of use. There is a lot of knowledge out there.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly versatile as well. Although, again, I do want to stress out, it is the engine for a retro shooter. If you want to make a retro shooter, you should use this.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very, very, very powerful for that. So you've obviously gone through quite a long process of learning, and you talked about having to learn to code. But are there any specific challenge, engine specific challenges that you've had to overcome?
Well, there's the usual. There's every engine has its own quirks. Stuff you'll eventually learn through your own mistakes of stuff don't have very short line defs, don't have overlapping lines, learn how to use the map analyzer, stuff like that, which is kind of stressful, especially when you're working on a commercial game and you have to make these big ass maps, and you're working against the clock, and then you have some sort of issue that just messes up your entire map, and then you're trying to troubleshoot it. But once you learn this stuff, it goes smoothly.
Yeah, it's bad enough making a Doom mod and having to battle through that, making a commercial game, and there's money on the line and a product to sell. Probably elevates that stress a fair amount.
Yeah.
Eris, you've been sent by Ty into the breach. He's dropped you in it. It's interesting having you here because you'll provide a slightly different perspective because you're primarily a composer, and you have obviously made Doom maps, but you're not a massive GZDoom kind of fanboy. But do you know why the Stellar Valkyrie was chosen for GZDoom?
Yeah, so I'm a bit underqualified to talk about this, but basically, with Stellar Valkyrie, I think the main reason we went for GZDoom is basically the people who are involved with it. So this is a Scumhead project, and it's got level design by Ubergavai, who is not a well-known name, but has been around the Z-Demon community for many years. For people who don't know, Z-Demon is a multiplayer Doom port. And so there's we have a history in the team with Doom modding, basically, because all of Scumhead's games run on GZDoom. Z-Demon is slightly less advanced. It's based on an old version of regular Z-Doom. So all of those things just come together. Like, we're not setting out to like go for like crazy features or anything that you could get from, I don't know, Quake Engine or Unity or Unreal. So GZDoom just does everything we kind of want it to with this game, and we already have like the sort of experience with it as a team. So yeah, perfect engine, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you say, that there's a probably, I think, for a lot of people here, there's an amount of experience already within the within that tool or that engine, and Scumhead's obviously very well versed in using that, and something that Zan said, it's a very easy one to just grab and use. Like, you can start fleshing out, just even with the vanilla Doom assets, you can start making things straight away. You can make playable spaces, start doing your level design, and getting balls deep into it nice and quickly.
Yeah, like even I can do Doom maps. Like,
even errors.
I think if I can do it, anyone can. I think that's how I see it.
Very good. So Sanya and SanyaWaffles and Metal Neon, you two are both working on Project Absentia, the only multi-dev appearance today. How did you? I'll be honest, I had not heard of Project Absentia up until recently. Through E1M1 and then Realms Deep. So it's looking promising. But how did you get into GZDoom as an engine for your game?
Well, I've been experimenting with GZDoom or ZDoom back in the day since like 2006, and I pretty much was just amazed with just how accessible it was. Like, yeah, the things that I made back in like 2006 to 2010 were not the best, but it was really fun to make and really accessible, especially for someone who doesn't exactly like modern engine workflows where you have to import like a bunch of different things and try to get it to work. Like, I've tried dabbling with other engines like Build, Unreal, etc., and just none of them hit me quite as much. So I think, I'm not going to say it was the absolute first Z-script based mod or game or that became a independent small indie game. Daytime Drama, I think, was one of the first, and I just found that just made the accessibility, at least for me, coming from a web design and programming background, I thought it was a lot more accessible than ever before. So I took that code base, I revamped one of my old My Little Pony based projects called a Scoot Heart DX, and I know everyone says the exact same thing.
I didn't say anything. I just wriggled my eyebrows.
No, I know, but a lot of people looked past it and saw it for what it was. It was just this neat, quirky little shooter. And a lot of people were just saying, well, this has commercial potential. So Motherload, a bunch of other people were like, this is something that could sell, and you mother effers need to consider that. And so I did. I decided I was going to do this, and Metal and I had discussed about going commercial in the case that Hasbro ever came and ceased and desisted us. So it was a natural progression to make an original IP. And the person who Aurora Dawn, actually, he's the one who wrote the fic that I based loosely based the game off of. He actually helped me a little bit with getting the story started, and then me and the rest of the team kind of took it from there. It's really shaping up to be interesting. It's got a lot more vertical stuff, and Z-Script made that a lot possible because ACS and Decorate, I just found it, for me personally, very limiting. I'm not saying that people can't do great things, but for me personally, I found Z-Script to be a lot more powerful and for what we were trying to do. And so I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, that's Yeah, it's definitely something that yeah, you can push quite far. And Metal Neon, you know, what's your role in the project?
Oh, for me, my biggest role is that I'm like the composer for the entire thing.
Right.
I do like the composing, and I'm also the person who like mixes all the sounds, make sure everything is like, you know, a-okay.
Yep.
I also do quite a bit of level design as well for a lot of them. Like for instance, in the demo that's going to be debuting pretty soon. If you're watching this at Realms Deep, it'll be probably already out. You'll there's like I did the mine level for that, so I hope you like it. Anyways, I don't know, but I hope you like it.
Oh, look forward to it.
But basically, all right. Basically, I basically joined like in like the development of Scoothard DX like I've only been working on this for like less than a year now, and I basically joined in initially as a playtester, but then I was like, hey, I want to get more involved with this as time goes on. And so eventually, I just ended up becoming the primary composer, doing some level design. I even came up with some enemy concepts that we ended up using, some really dickish ones. So
Fantastic, my favorite.
You can say "fuck you, metal" if they get fucked over by them. Okay, you can say "fuck you" to me. Okay.
Yeah. I will definitely be doing that. Sgt Mark, you know, I think people know exactly who you are. You've been around for a long time, and whatever your thoughts on something like Brutal Doom is, it's part of the furniture. It's you know, really been a front and center, I think, in terms of like pushing kind of like, you know, Doom and other you know, by association, other retro styled kind of shooters like we're seeing now out there into the popular you know, popular mindset, and people play it. So you're now making your own game, which is fantastic. I think that's a pretty obvious answer, but yeah, why did you decide to stick with GZDoom as an engine for Brutal Fate?
Well, because, you know, like, I started making Brutal Doom for fun when, you know, like 10 years ago, and the original idea of Brutal Doom was to, like, make, like, the Doom tree. I always imagined, like, what would be the perfect version of Doom tree. As I kept adding more and more stuff, it got to a point where my ideas were no longer fitting the universe of Doom. Like, I got a bit of backlash for the last version because I was adding stuff that simply does not fit the universe of Doom. Like, Brutal Doom was getting way too big for Doom itself. It had to become its own thing. So it became natural that it would become its own game. And after 10 years working with this engine, I understand exactly what I can do, what I can't do with this engine, what kind of stuff would cause the game to lag. I understand everything about the workflow of the engine. So, well, why not? Why not stick with this engine and make a first-person shooter, like my idea, my dream first-person shooter on this engine, and reuse all the skills I have gathered for these last 10 years. And it's just kind of some natural stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, like you've gone through with you know, with Brutal Doom for so long and now into Brutal Fate. Was there like a specific challenge or something that you, like an issue that you found in Brutal Doom, say, that you wanted to try and overcome for Brutal Fate working from the ground up? Was there a particular kind of hang up left over from your modding days that you wanted to knock out of the park?
Well, one of the best things about like working on a game that is not just a Doom mod, there are several things. The first thing is like Brutal Doom. I started working on this when it was on the Skulltag days, and it was like very primitive tools you had available, very limited script stuff, and much of the Brutal Doom's code is still tied to this stuff from the Skulltag days, and so it's pretty great to start over with some more modern stuff, despite the fact that I still want to keep Brutal Fate compatible with Zandrono because it must have a multiplayer, which GZDoom unfortunately cannot support for now. A real multiplayer.
It's bad enough making Doom maps for Zandro, let alone a full game.
Yeah, but
I salute you.
I mean, but all these challenges about the limitations of Zandrono, you can overcome with creativity. Like, I don't know if you have heard of a project called Total Chaos.
Yep.
which is like it's a very modern horror game originally made for the Skulltech engine. It looks absolutely awesome. Like it looks
very
like
nice.
a modern game made in the early 2010s. And like Zandrone has these limitations in code, but if you're creative enough, if you're stubborn enough, you can overcome them without problems. Actually, I would say the biggest problem when you're developing for GZDoom is GraphZal, because
No.
at some
Here we
point,
go.
at some point he's gonna decide that something doesn't need to be like, for example, there's a feature in Zandrono which is the 3D model billboarding, which you can turn a 3D model and billboard it into a 2D sprite.
Right.
There are like 1,000 different uses you can do with this feature. And someday GraphZal woke up and say, "We don't need this. Let's remove this."
No, I think I've heard similar stories for things like Unity and UE4, but the updates are less frequent. So the price we pay for having an active dev team for GZDoom is, while there are lots of updates and lots of improvements, every now and then a feature just gets chopped, and it actually happened to us for Age of Hell for something, and Mr. Cat had to go and recode a whole lot of stuff because a particular feature got cut out. It might have actually even been a bug that we were exploiting.
No.
So, speaking
it
of...
was just that they updated the method they were using, and it completely changed in the back end how it dealt with camera textures.
We have a late addition jumping in. We got the Mr. Cat, who is working with me on Age of Hell, it would... I'd pretty much call him a co-leader of the project now, but certainly in terms of effort put in. I think this will... I was just going to talk about it myself, but this makes it better.
It's funny that you bring up Total Chaos, Mark, because I actually wrote the inventory HUD system for
you
that.
worked on that.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, so...
anyway, just want to finish that. Total Chaos was a proof that no matter what limitations the engine have, you can overcome it if you're creative enough. And actually, I would highly encourage people to learn how not just making Doom mods, but if you have a good idea, just go ahead and make a game of it. If you don't have $100 to publish your game on Steam, then publish the game on itch.io and publish the game for free.
Yep.
And if people want, they can buy the game. The engine is easy enough to make your own game, even if you don't have any knowledge on coding or anything. This is a real good chance to go ahead and make your first person shooter if you really want to work on this. If you ever dreamed about this when you were a kid, it's never too late to try. It's a very easy engine.
Definitely, and I'm here in my mid-30s doing exactly that. It is easy. All it costs you is time. That's the only thing it will cost you. It's time and effort and energy, and that's not nothing. But there's very little capital outlay. If you want to make something really good, then you might have to pay some artists. But in terms of actually experimenting and making a product, and then maybe you sell it for $1, at least getting into that process, it costs you pretty much nothing.
Barrier for entry is pretty much zero.
Yeah,
really.
correct. So, Mr. Cat, you're working with me on Age of Hell. You've got a long history of modding and dabbling in the engine. What do you like about GZDoom, or if anything?
Well, probably that low barrier for entry is a good start. I mean, I started there like I assume everyone else did. But from there, I mean, it's got a big community filled with people with a lot of ideas, different implementations, and it's very easy to kind of pull together and, work as part of a team to create something that otherwise might have taken you 10 times as long. In terms of the technical side of things, I mean, it's a mixed bag with GZDoom, really, at the end of the day, because, like Sgt Mark was saying, what exactly, how did he phrase it? There are things you shouldn't, there are things you can't do. I would probably rephrase that as there are things you probably shouldn't do. There are a lot of things that you can do that will just destroy the engine. but that could be said of any engine if you really work hard enough.
Every engine has its limitations, definitely. You've got I'd say probably more than anyone I know, just about an in-depth knowledge of the code base and able to experiment and extract as much as possible from the engine. What's the challenges in like diving that deep into ZScript and the various tricks that you utilize?
Well, you see, that's the really sexy part, is that it's not something that I actively like just go, oh, I have to do it this way. It's where you can experiment and find the most direct or the most optimized way of doing something, and that's probably the biggest fun part for me, is finding these workarounds. And of course Xandro, back in the Xandro and even Skulltag days, those workarounds were far more myriad, and far more often deviating. Like, you'd have to deviate from what you're actually trying to do just to actually get to what you want to do.
I imagine like a real roundabout loop to get to your end goal that takes you through a path that doesn't necessarily seem obvious initially.
I mean, a lot of the code is just like that, really. It gets clearer and clearer, and ZScript has helped to remove that barrier in a lot of ways, because you just have direct access to a lot of things that you just otherwise would never have
for sure.
been able to.
I mean, like, you talk about that roundabout and experimentation and finding the path. I mean, that's Doom modding in general. Like, you go right back to the vanilla engine and the weird hacks people can do to things like Miko portals to create complicated scripts in vanilla. It's kind of ingrained in the DNA of the engine.
Oh, the whole idea of voodoo scripts are just, it blows my mind.
Who came up with that?
It's almost like Minecraft Redstone, except Redstone is more direct. Like, you could actually use that to just write full out code. There are some similarities there.
Nash, I left you to last deliberately. Thank you for waiting. So you're obviously making your own game, and Darkadia looking very, very cool. But you're also a GZDoom dev. So I wanted to talk to you because you can provide a genuinely unique perspective on the engine. And I think the first thing I want to ask you is, like, what's it like having all these actual games, commercial games, being made with GZDoom? Like, good?
Well, first off, before I start, let me just say that I'm only one of the developers. So what I say is opinion is just my own. It does not represent the entire team.
For sure.
Okay. With that out of the way, wow, man, I'm just super stoked to see, 20 years ago, no one would ever think of being able to use a Doom engine to make commercial games, And now I'm seeing all these very cool projects, and because I originally started the initial effort to relicense the engine to be GPL compatible, which means you can then ship your commercial games with it. So, and I remember one of the first games that came out was actually this platformer, side scroller game. I think it was called a Forest Tale, And so it wasn't even like a first person game. It was like a platformer, and that really opened up eyes. A lot of people's eyes are like, wow, GZDoom can do this, And ever since then, I've also been I've started these several game kits, so-called, where there's like a standalone game kit and there's a platformer kit, sort of like a template for people to start creating original stuff with. Yeah, so it's on the forums and all that, and I was very motivated to see I just love seeing people create all this really cool, unexpected stuff with GZDoom, and it just keeps me going and going. So
fantastic.
It's pretty awesome.
We'll keep doing it then. I'm sure it's a bit of a double-edged sword though. Are there any and again, just your personal opinion on this? Do you think is having all this additional attention, different games trying to do different things, has that created any issues for you from a developer perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as Mark has said, you have to know your limits. First and foremost, and even Zan has said it before at the start of this show. GZDoom is first and foremost. It is a first-person shooter engine. you can do like I've seen people do like even real-time strategy, and all the weird stuff, but you have to know your limits, especially in terms of collision. The Doom engine is using AABB in a bounding box.
Can we have rotating
So
hitboxes, please?
Exactly. So as long as you stick within that limitation, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. But the more you trying to stray off that, and then you will run into all these limitations. And to be quite honest, like if you find yourself in that situation, I think you should look into another engine. Yeah. But if you're going for first-person shooters, that kind of stuff, GZDoom is it's perfect.
It is. I'd actually say it's, Mark, you said it, Nash is a little bit biased because he's making it, but no, I 100% agree. Like if you want to make a first-person shooter with very little effort in terms of getting started, getting rolling, code base already there, GZDoom.
Exactly.
Just
GZDoom. One of the great things about it is like it's a portable engine, So technically, all you need is just Notepad, and you're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
it's cool, and I think I said it at the beginning, but you look around the room, and there's a lot of variety just in the first-person shooter.
Exactly.
Genre over here, like they're all different games, they all have different feels. You can, if you scratch a little bit below the surface, you can find those Doom roots. But a couple other games that unfortunately couldn't seem representative today for a variety of reasons. I got Relentless Frontier by Clausedon and Co. That's got a very bright, visual flair to it, and the art style of the weapons and the enemies is very feels a bit over the top, very very bombastic to me. And then you got something like Sulaco, which definitely looks like a completely different engine.
That just blows my mind. That is just absolutely amazing.
Sulaco's witchcraft, as far as I'm concerned.
I think everyone involved in GZDoom is like, yep, that's the best game. It's like, I ain't even mad. Like that banana peel slip. It's like, what? That's illegal.
That is amazing.
Illegally cool. Yeah. I'll be very interested to see if they crack the code, Nash, to create proper bullet time. So I know that's something they've been bashing their head against, and that's something that we've tried to
actually, on the ZDoom Discord, there was one, I don't remember who it was, but actually they did a sort of a proper bullet time thingy.
Yeah.
Which involved it was a very convoluted setup. I think it involved he or she, I don't remember. They had to like manually lower the tick rate of every actor in the level.
Yeah.
And manually lower the tick rate, the gravity, and everything was done manually. But it looked very convincing.
Okay.
It was a huge improvement over the typical time freeze.
Oh, that doesn't look good. I mean,
actually, there's already a method to. I actually made a mod like let's see how can I start this right. There's already a way to control the how long a tick lasts in the GZDoom engine, but it's still a very limited feature. They don't have this documented anywhere. It's the console command
timescale. Yeah, but that affects your menu though.
That is actually a debug feature. It's not meant to be used by modders actually.
Yeah, and that affects how long the console takes to drop down. It slows down.
Yeah.
No, because Mark, we thought about that as well. Mark is like, can we use our timescale? But because it affects everything. Your menu suddenly takes 14 seconds to open up, and that's not good.
Yeah, it's not usable.
If I could find some way to delink that from the...
Yeah, or like as soon as you hit escape, it stops, and because bullet time's cool.
I don't understand why Graph thinks this is not usable. I have made a quick mod. I uploaded it on public. People can check it out if they want. Which is just like it's just a keyboard bind, which executes some commands, which change it's like it's a universal slow mode option, which just change. It's a keybind that changes the time scale to 50%, and then when you press again, it changes back to 200%. And
so,
I don't see a problem why this cannot be made into an official feature. I think Graph is just being
No, I mean,
Yeah,
like
well,
you know, if you want it in there, Mark, you can code that into your interface. Like, there's nothing stopping you from doing it.
Well, see, the thing is, the feature was really hacked in. Like, probably I don't have like an actual number, but it was really hacked in. You know, it wasn't done properly, and so that's why like. You know, it's not an official feature because no one has the time to like actually do it properly. Like you said, the menu becomes slow and all that. If someone works on it properly, I don't see why not. It could be exposed like as an official feature.
If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Solacos, the Solaco teams.
Yeah.
And if they do, I will be pinning Nextech against the wall and shaking him down for information.
Sure.
Sanya?
There might be a way to do this with ZScript. You can actually change the tick duration of the function. It's an actual variable. Every time a state is advanced, the ticks variable on the actor is changed. You could theoretically multiply that by, say, 2 to make it a 50% bullet time thing.
That was what the other mod was doing. Was talking about like. It's actually messing. It messed directly with the actor's tick variable. Yeah, on top of changing the gravity and all that other fun stuff.
We've just implemented. I say we, Cat did all the hard work. Implemented something similar to Age of Hell, where the lower difficulty settings, the monsters' attack frames are spaced out further, so it telegraphs slower, give you players more time to react. And I think like the ability to do that kind of stuff directly is very cool.
I should dig up that mod. I need to figure out how it's done, and maybe I can put it out as a resource.
That he probably just overrode the base actor class, overrode the tick function, and then just had it checking for whatever power up, and then lengthening the tick frames.
Like you said, there's usually a way to work around whatever limitations. Cool. I mean,
awkward silence there.
Awkward silence. Yeah, I mean, every show needs at least one little block of awkward silence.
I have a better suggestion. Let's just make a fork and give the user the ability to control the either line time scale through bitrate or ECS. And let's all time scale already controls everything. It already controls the gravity, the duration of ticks. It already's there.
There's already a base kind of concept that I think if worked on could end up at the kind of thing that we all want. And maybe it does. It might be. It takes a fork. Actually, I'm surprised that GZDoom hasn't had more forks.
I was actually just wondering because when we do our games, like we're distributing it generally as an executable, right? So, and I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about here at all, but like,
none of us
just like modify. Can we not just like modify GZDoom for like our own like specific needs, or is there like something against that?
I'm pretty sure you can.
Actually,
you can.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I'm doing for Darkadia. Like, we have bespoke features that are implemented specifically for a certain type of game. So yeah, that is definitely something you can do, but as per the GPL clause, you must distribute the source code to your changes. That's about it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, you certainly can. Like,
I mean,
you can go ahead and.
Zan, are you doing something like that with Hedon? Are you doing any custom?
Yeah, it's basically I had to like modify the settings because you have like all the network and miscellaneous settings and all that stuff that you want out of your engine.
8 million options in the GZDoom menu.
The second you touch anything, you need to legally rename and fork the engine, basically.
All right.
Yeah.
Take notes.
Yeah,
Cat.
something.
Is that when you make that kind of change, and then GZDoom implements another feature that you want, you have to go ahead and just remake all of those changes again to the new source.
Yeah, like if you're going to do that, I think you need to draw a line in which GZDoom version you want to use and just stick with it.
You have to lock to it like one specific version and go on from there.
Yeah, exactly. Which is its own problems, in terms of workflows and.
It's actually not necessary. What you can do is keep a separated settings just for a game, and have make your own menu defs work differently, and not replace the GZDoom root source code. Actually, you just have on your own IPK tree. You have your version of the menu defs, and whatever changes on GZDoom update, you can just check yourself. You go to the GZDoom PK tree and check what changes. If anything is important to your game, then you add or you just ignore.
Well, that's kind of still what I'm getting at, is that you need to make those changes. As soon as you see there's a feature you want in a new build, you have to patch in one way or another.
Yeah, I'd have to fold in the new build feature or your custom stuff into the new build.
Yeah, and unfortunately that requires you to be very close to the dev team to like keep track of the changes and stuff, and yeah, it's not for everyone.
So I mean,
I'm in this situation basically.
Yeah.
There's a chance,
like even as a developer myself, even I sometimes get confused with the stuff that changes upstream. Seriously,
that doesn't bode well for us mortals down here on Earth.
I think Sanya wants to speak.
I have an experience with. I actually, when I made several versions of Waffle Iron GZDoom, WI GZDoom over the years. I made it back before it was GPL compliant. It wasn't like it wasn't commercial or anything. So one of the prototypes for Scooter DX actually has an old build of that. I did find the source code for that recently. Basically you can modify the source code depending on what you need. I do it just so I can keep everything separate from other installs of GZDoom. So the save states are all independent. The settings are all different. I know that there's some provisions for that in by default, but I'm a little eccentric like that. My main thing is also I changed the icon and some of the branding, so GZDoom becomes WIGZDoom, that sort of thing. That said, though, what Sgt Mark IV is suggesting is also perfectly valid. Of just if you just need the stock GZDoom and just remove and add in your own IPK3 what you specifically need for the menus, or if you don't need any additional features, that's perfectly valid too. What Zan's doing is perfectly valid. It just depends on what your needs are. It's genuinely just up to the developer or the designer what they are interested in doing.
What's your scope? What's your use case? Let that determine what you want. Metal Neil.
Yeah, one of the things that we also changed specifically was, and I don't know if this is like a really weird like bug or something, or just like a feature that doesn't necessarily work correctly. We're not sure, but like
it's not a bug; it's a feature.
It's a feature. I was gonna say we basically had to change the air control variable specifically for our fork, because no matter if you defined it in like the basically like the main map like map info thing, it would have to be defined individually for each map if you wanted the air control to be like different compared to stock Doom. So we actually had to like use that with like a fork or whatever. Right? Sanya?
Don't we have a universal one, Cat? Universal map?
It is in the default map, but I cannot confirm whether that's actually working or not, because I've only really worked with one or two maps and there's a lot of changing in them.
It's across the maps that I've made and finished, and the changes are in there.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we've just got it in the default map block, and it seems to work fine. But on that note, standard ZDoom fucking air control is just trash.
It's bad.
I mean,
I know.
I can clarify a little bit on what Metal was suggesting here. So basically, and I don't know if I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Nash and I could all talk about it a little bit. If basically the issue is if you define air control in, say, the game defaults block, it'll do it for every map defined in your IPK3, but it won't do it. Sorry.
It's sorry, let me interrupt you, but this is like extremely easy thing to do. All you need to do is just make a script that opens on every map. You just use load ACS to load the script on every map and set their control you want. And it's going to work in every map. You don't need to define anything.
Wait, hold up. That's a thing?
That would work. Yeah, load ACS is a thing, yeah. So you can have...
No, I know load ACS is a thing. I'm talking about I did not know you could control the air control per level.
Yep.
That way.
Yes, you can.
Hey, we're spreading knowledge. There we go.
Yeah, let me tell you. And actually, for Brutal Fate, since it's supposed to work both on GZDoom and Zandrono, and Zandrono and GZDoom have different values
Very,
for
very
control,
different.
I was able to do this. At the beginning of when any map is loaded, I load a script, which turns the player the camera roll a bit, and then it runs a script to check the player camera roll. If it's if it's above 0.0, then it means completely is not.
We appear to be dying.
I think
We're dying?
something's happening. We're
Is
dying.
it
Yeah.
journal?
Oh, I
And
think
then
it's
it sets
all good.
the air control to 0.9, which is it's a very good air control for GZDoom.
I can see everyone. Yep, I think we're all fine. I think there was just sort of a Discord server glitch there. No, I think that's pretty clever, Mark. Checking because I'm guessing that camera roll is a GZDoom specific feature.
Yeah.
Therefore, if it's like a little bit rolled, it'll go, we're in GZDoom. Because I was thinking, like, how would you check what port you're in? And that's pretty smart. That's pretty smart.
It's actually pretty clever, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And that's what Kat was talking about, like that roundabout loop to get to what you want. Should be easy option. Have a check. What engine are we in? Zandro, return of value. Can't be done. Okay, how do we go about that? We can walk around. What's something you can do in GZDoom, like real quick via a script, instantaneously, and check right there and there at the beginning of the map. What port are we in? Cool. Because what you're saying, Mark, about the air control being different in Zandro. Last year I released a community project for that runs both in Zandro and GZDoom, and fucking no reason made a jumping jump maze kind of map, and trying to get that to work in both ports was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, like you just need stuff like this, and like as he was saying, like you don't need to check on every map on the map info the air control. You can do it just on the ACS script. You load at the beginning of every map with an open or an enter script. No, actually an open script will work better. And
ACS
you just
is
set
pretty
their
powerful.
control.
For sure. Yeah, because like you say, Mark, you just need to write the one script and you just have it load at the beginning of every map, and it does it all for you. And just have it as a load ACS that's in the general PK3, and done, easy.
And from this very same script, you are already able to tell if it's running on GZDoom or Zandrono, and on this with just one script you can run everything you need to make sure the game will run well on both sources.
I imagine that you can do things like say Zandrono doesn't support attenuated lights. You could delete all your attenuated lights from the map and stuff like that, and I'm definitely going to file that one away.
For example, in GZDoom you can control the spect radio. Zandrono forces you to use Doom original 1.1 by 1, which is a bit more, which Doom in general stresses up a bit. So if you run a 3D model in a GZDoom map which uses the 1.0 by 1.0 spect radio, the same model in Zandrono will look a bit lower. I had this problem with barrels in Brutal Fate.
Right.
So with the same script, I can just, if it detects it's running in Zandrono, I can just change the scale of the actor to 1.1 of its original scale, and it's going to fit Zandrono perfectly.
Hold up, Zandro doesn't support pixel ratio?
No.
On the... Bruh.
Zandrono is based on like a 7-year-old GZDoom. It is the drunk uncle at the party who thinks that they're still playing with the big guys.
Still hip.
Yeah, pretty much.
In Zandrono's defense, I was able to make Vietdoom work perfectly on it, which features destroyable buildings with structure integrity, like proxy engine stuff, like destroy walls, and it reduces the structural integrity of the building. I have made a forest that you can set the forest on fire, and the fire propagates like in Far Cry. All this stuff running in Zandrono.
Nice.
All the limitations of this are just on your creativity. There's you can overcome any technical limitations of it if you
I
they're
think
creative enough.
I think for me personally, like in terms of my mapping style, there's a couple of like because Xandro doesn't support UDMF slope fields. So things like the new arch tool and slope handles, which so like that doesn't affect like that won't affect potential mechanics and gameplay. But for me personally, in terms of what I like doing and my design, I do have to, like I say, you have to get creative and work around it. That's fine. But there are a couple of features that with Xandro, it's like, I just want this to work like this, please. Anyone else planning on trying to get their game working in Xandro? Definitely just crickets. Chirp, chirp, chirp.
I was gonna say, I don't even think we could if we wanted to, because like we'd have to rewrite how our game basically works, because we're all like pretty much Z script at this point, with some ACS here and there for some map stuff.
One thing I'm quite interested to do for Age of Hell, and this would be Cat's call because it'll be his work, is at least make a deathmatch pack of the Age of Hell weapons. Like, get that working in Xandro. That'd be pretty cool. I think that will work quite well actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just hope that one day the client server branch on GZDoom just picks up back again, because that was some really promising work done back there.
Yeah, so. I mean, like I'm assuming it's a lot of work. I have no idea what actually it entails, but surely it's a thing that can be achieved.
Yeah, in 2030 maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe everything's a maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that would be
point.
Good.
It got to a point where the GZDoom's netcode was completely ripped out from the engine, and basic joining already worked, but it had some synchronization issues. It was very promising, but it just stopped dead.
I mean, that's the thing. I think that's the thing we all have to keep in mind, and that's definitely something that I'm conscious of. But this is done by people for free. Yeah, they're putting their own free time into this kind of shit, and for like as much as I'd love to have the GZDoom dev team put all the cool shit that I want into the engine, I'm not doing the work, and I can respect the people that are like actually putting in genuine effort into keeping it. And you look at like you can compare GZDoom's development to any other Doom port. It is rocketing ahead. There is just always updates, just particularly the last kind of 3 or 4, or maybe I'm just more clued into it recently. But there's new big updates on a very regular basis, and that's a really good thing. And I think we should all be pretty thankful that Nash and Co do work hard on it. And while we don't always get what we might want, there's still progress. And you compare the current build to a couple of years ago, like pre 3.7, and the amount of FPS you drop if you fire plasma anywhere in a detailed map, moving dynamic lights would tank FPS. And I remember 3.7.2 when that one dropped, and they worked out there was a bloom bug in the 2 builds before that. When that one came out, I was like, oh yes, my maps are playable.
Graph actually one of the great things that he recently did was refactor the dynamic light code to not be actors. Previously they were actors. They're considered like the same kind of object as all the monsters. So he separated all that, and as a result the dynamic lights run way faster now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're talking to someone who routinely puts more than 1,000 in their maps, so that's good. I hit the shadow I hit the shadow map limit in one of my maps, which I posted on the forum. So this bug, shadow maps aren't rendering in some places. What's going on here? And Graf's like, you've hit the limit. I didn't think anyone was going to do that. Oops.
I didn't think I'd get this far.
Yeah. That's my job, is to break things. Actually, to be fair to the engine, and probably of the devs here, I'd say, Mark, you'd probably be closest to the kind of things that I try and do visually. Is like GZDoom can actually handle some fucking epic scenes.
Yes, it can.
People bitch about GZDoom's performance. Maybe that was valid, 3, 4 years ago, 5, I don't know. But these days you can make some seriously imposing geometry, and while it might be more efficient to make it in a UE4 or something, you can make stuff that's as big as anything in, say, Doom Eternal. It's great.
Actually, I think the big strength of the Doom engine is how it can handle hundreds or thousands of enemies on screen.
Definitely.
Like not even Zero Sand can like Doom Eternal and Doom 16 can only have 50 enemies at the same time. They have like to wait until you kill the enemies and then you spawn more enemies because you can only have 15 enemies before everything starts to lag down.
Yep.
Even Zero Sand, you can never have more than 25 or 30.
Yeah, it's waves coming through to create the impression of lots of enemies.
But in GZDoom you can have like 400, 500, 1000, and it can still work. You can still keep 60 FPS.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the old issues with high enemy counts was that dynamic light issue with moving dynamic lights would tank the engine. And when you have 2,000 enemies on screen throwing things, it wasn't the enemies per se, it was their projectiles. But, you know, Thunder Map 17 has a 2,000 enemy fight at the end of that. It's flawless on GZDoom, so... Yeah. And that, I think that's a shout out to the Doom engine to be able to handle that kind of scope.
For sure. Actually, a few years ago, I did the music for a level called The Given by Dobu Gabu Maru, and that level has no enemies at all. But it's like this massive cavern with like really intricate like geometry, and it's like one massive open space. And I remember, like, Dobu sent me like sort of like an unfinished version to get a feel for the music, and I remember it ran like shit on GZDoom. Like, this was early 2017 or something, and then I was getting like 8 or 9 FPS or something, and then it released, and then a few months later I updated GZDoom to, it might have been like 3.7 or something, and I think my frame rate like doubled or tripled something. So all around, the engine has just become a lot more optimized over the last few years. Definitely, which has been really cool.
There have been improvements for sure.
Yeah. And like the Vulkan renderer is now a focus, and there's the GZDoom is pushing itself into like being well utilized by modern systems. And I think that focus, while not so good for people with older computers, but there are ports for those people, like those exist, and I'm not just talking about Doom. Like there's LZ Doom. And stuff like that. So it's not like everyone else is getting who can't afford or can't get their hands on a modern machine is getting left behind. Still plenty of content made even for vanilla, I think GZDoom is doing the right thing in pushing hard into modernizing. If only we could get multi-threading.
Or like floor decals that were, floor decals, for instance.
Oh my god, I want fucking floor decals already.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for 2 years.
Yeah.
Ash, get on it!
So, as part of the bespoke changes for Darkadia that I've commissioned for the game, is that it's changing the way the level is rendered to, because right now the way GZDoom and I think most retro style engines are doing it is that the entire level is re-uploaded to the GPU every frame, because of like dynamic geometry, like moving doors and platforms and stuff. So as part of the changes that I want to implement in Darkadia is that the level is only rendered once, like a single giant mesh that's only uploaded to the GPU just once. So what this does, it massively will speed up rendering, and will allow like more interesting features like full shadow maps, working in full 3D. And
I think we need to beat Nash up and take his port. That's actually what we're here for, is to gang up on Nash and squeeze him for the goodies. Sorry.
Yeah. So and I do plan to forward those features upstream, of course, for sure. But
no,
actually,
sorry,
yeah.
Karen?
So right now the progress is that we already have the level rendering as a static mesh, which does result in there's this very famous or infamous WOD called Frozen Time, I think.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Where it's this massive scene with rendering like 12K, 14K lines.
Rookie numbers
By your standards, of course. But so it's normally Graph uses that scene to do some benchmarking. It's his favorite stress test scene. So normally in normal GZDoom, it's rendering like on my computer, it's rendering like around 60 or 50 frames versus 144 or whatever, right? So with the static level static mesh branch, it's rendering at full speed, basically 144. Or if you uncap your FPS, you know, it could go up to 200 and stuff. So very promising.
Expect lots of DMs from me.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yes.
I was gonna say, it's unfortunate, like, you know, Chords are, you know, for like Relentless Frontier isn't here because I know his project in particular would really benefit from that because like
He does
when
big,
I'm like
big
playing
scenes. Yeah.
yeah, massive, just giant like Halo level vistas. I'd say like, you know, a very Halo-esque is what like the vibes I get from that. And it's like it tanks. I have like I'd say I have a pretty beefy system for what it's worth, and it tanks my frames even down to like 45 at like 1440p.
So it's funny. Like people talk about their frames tanking to 50 FPS, and that's good for me. I like
first world problems.
Yeah, genuine. I do have a good computer, but I think I genuinely have a higher tolerance for low FPS.
I run Doom 35 anyway. I won't notice.
I do too.
Actually, there are ways to overcome this kind of stuff, even with the current public port versions of GZDoom. For example, for Brutal Fate, I want to have like outdoor areas in the surface of the planet, and I don't want to have GZDoom blockiness, like, because you know, like when you're trying to make outdoor areas in an engine that's a sector-based engine, such as the Doom engine or Build engine, everything is gonna look blocky because you said that the sky is actually a ceiling, and it looks like the sky is actually like a laser that cut down the mountains.
That always bothers me.
Yeah, I have some screenshots on Twitter about this. I think the solution I found was to make decorative objects using 3D models of huge rocks that have no collision.
Oh yeah, static meshes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, static meshes, and you can have like several of them making a very organic structure and keep your frame rate about 200, 300. It's possible.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say I remember he was talking about how he was gaining some FPS because a lot of his he was using like what was it called again? Like he was basically using like sectors for everything, like little cannons in the distance that you'd see. They're all sectors, umbrellas, tables, and stuff. So he's been I think he's been going through and converting some of them, or he's been getting someone to convert some of them into 3D models. And apparently his performance has been gaining because of that already.
Yeah, UDB's new model export function. Or no, it's not new. It's been around for a while, but it got improved a lot over the last kind of 12 months. Much more user friendly, very huge, and Age of Hell will be making very good use of that. And it's not just for performance. It's really cool because you want to make a really cool set of swinging arched doors. Fuck, make it out of 3D floors, flat, texture it, make it all look good. It looks like it's all textured in your textures. Then export it as a model. Bang, door fits the visuals. It doesn't scream. This is a model to everyone. Very powerful. Very powerful tool.
Something I've considered doing for one of our levels later on. We're gonna have like a level later where there's gonna be like a castle or something is what I'm currently intending. I've considered possibly just basically making this giant impressive castle, think like an Unreal Castle for instance, and just making it as a 3D model essentially, or either just doing that and or using parts of it as 3D models to make it look more impressive essentially.
Yeah,
Possibly.
Sorry, Mark.
Here's a rule of thumb: if it's something you can touch or it's far from the player, make it a 3D model. Don't make it level geometry.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Because it saves a lot of.
So there are some exceptions. So models generally are a more efficient use of your computing power. Moving models, like high poly moving models and dynamic lights, do not go well together. I was making one of my elementalism maps. I set up a ring of cogs around this big, fucking huge structure, many thousands of lines. Classic Bridgeburner stuff. But I put these cogs up, these rotating cogs. I thought these are not cool, and I put a light on every one of them. And then I realized, maybe about a couple of weeks later, my frame rate had just disappeared, more so than usual. But even in areas I made a box off in the void, put the player in there. Frame rate was still only I think 110, in a featureless 6-sided cube. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? It was the rotating models. So those calculations around the dynamic lights hitting the various surfaces really really shat on the performance. And then another example was I had some trees in another map. I wanted to create kind of a grove, and like you can get in like some fancy gardens, you get those underlighting. I use spotlights.
Yeah.
Annihilated FPS as well. These weren't moving models, but spotlights on pretty complex models, like a little pretty high poly because they were trees. It did damage.
Something I was curious about actually, because I'm still like very much experimenting with 3D models in GZDoom. In fact, actually, most of the reason Project Ascension even has 3D models is because I'm experimenting with a lot of it. Obviously we got some useful tips from like the Sulaco devs where they were like, hey, use the voxels as 3D models and you'll get better performance because, you're nodding no. That's what they were telling us.
No, don't use voxels. Get converted. Voxels get converted to models by GZDoom.
Metal.
Kit Hinder.
Yeah, it was like no.
Can I weigh in here? Metal, you need to stop calling them voxels. They are not voxels. They are 3D models you converted the voxels into 3D models.
See, because Sulaco used to use voxels and I told them to not. They stopped.
That's what I was saying. Sorry, my bad.
And it incredibly improved performance the minute we did that.
Yeah.
Let's say like this is a voxel, like you think this is a voxel, but when you load to GZDoom, it's no longer a voxel. Every single pixel becomes
a triangle.
All the voxel faces become two triangles.
Actually, each voxel becomes 1, 2, 3, 4,
12.
16 triangles. 16 triangles.
12? 6 times 2?
Yeah.
It depends how many open faces there are, but each face takes 2 tries.
Yeah.
So not good. Not good.
Yeah, like we just converted them all into standard 3D models, and first of all, help performance. Secondly, it let us do pretty cool stuff more easily, like bright maps and such.
The cool things about voxels is like voxels are easy to make, so like anyone can make them. Like it's like playing with Lego. So that's the power of voxels, and they do actually have a use, and it is unfortunate that GZDoom could. But if you're just using them for pickups in a relatively simple setup without too many taxing elements, you'll be fine. You'll be completely fine.
Yeah, that's literally the only time
I disagree. I strongly disagree. 3D models like in Blender are just so easy when you actually put the effort on this. You can make a big model, like a very detailed model, in one day, in just like 4 hours, 5 hours. It's not difficult at all.
No, I mean it depends what program you're using. But like if you're going to make some pickups, like making them out of voxels I'd say it's a lot easier, a lot faster, particularly if you're new to it. Because you can also, like in modeling, speaking as someone who has never really done it, you can easily end up with a like a really high poly model accidentally way too detailed and just completely fucks FPS. Like there's pitfalls in all forms of resource, I guess. And it's just about managing it, much like
all I'm gonna say is making voxels, like the process of making voxels and the process of making like 3D models is kind of a very different process because you have to think about very different things while you're doing both of them. I mean, to be fair, like how I started, I usually just start with a 3D model and then I import it in my voxel program to like just get like a basis just to work with something, and then I sculpt it from there in my voxel program and I color it in.
I'd agree. If you're going to learn something, learn how to model. Don't know how to make voxels.
I mean, you're right. A model in general is useful, but then like if you're modeling, you doing like a 3D model for it, like as its own 3D model,
unless
you have to then think about like, then you have to like think about like, okay, how am I going to texture map this thing? How am I going to set that up?
Exactly.
And, like, I mean, it's not super hard when it's like like a fucking cube or whatever, but like if it's like something really complicated, like a super high poly model, then it becomes a lot harder to do, or at least like a very different kind of thought process, I'd say.
Definitely. I think texturing models well is one of the hardest parts.
That's what we got hung up on.
Yeah, we got hung up on that for a while until I finally just bit the bullet and was just like, okay, I'm just gonna make this train in like our mind level, and it'll just be like this little train that kind of goes by every now and then. You can't touch it or anything; it doesn't have any collision, but it's just there for like a little set piece. I actually had like a little bit of a small question actually regarding like performance and stuff, because I think I did some preliminary testing or whatever, and I'm not really sure which is more optimized or sure. I think there's a difference, but I'm not sure if there even is. We initially were using OBJs for our because we use like 3D models for our blood decals on the floor because there's less Z fighting issues and like flat sprites are kind of weird, so we went with 3D models for that. But initially we were using OBJs, but then I ended up switching to MD3s so that we could easily switch over like, the skin much more easily for that. So, you could have like different colored like blood or whatever for different enemies, for instance. But anyways, for the MD3s, we had to actually convert them into polygons and actually triangulate it instead of using quads. So I was wondering, like, is there actually like a performance difference between like, the two?
No, they're all using the same backend. Shouldn't be a performance difference.
I just didn't know. I didn't know, so that's actually pretty helpful.
And it depends on the MD3 exporter you're using, and because my exporter does the triangulation for you, so I'm not sure why you had to do the manual triangulation.
I'm using the one for Blender, because I mostly use Blender. So,
it's the toggle in Blender. It's when you go to export.
It's very easy to triangulate in Blender though. You just pop on a modifier and that's it. So
it's best not to. Blender deals better with quads for all of its modifiers and shit. So just when you're exporting, there's a tick for it to triangulate when you export to OBJ.
Yeah, we do use like the reason we were experimenting with MD3s is because we're planning on having like animated like like I'm not gonna say too much. We're planning on having some parts that are gonna be more animated with like actual frames of animation. And to my understanding, GZDoom doesn't actually like OBJs don't support that in GZDoom. Like you can't have like,
OBJs don't animate. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no animation content associated with the OBJ format.
So like we'd either have to use we either have to use MD3s, MD2s, or like the Unreal format. I went with MD3.
MD3 is pretty standard.
Yeah, I just went with that because it was the easiest one to find an exporter for. And it seems to be working pretty well, so we're excited for that. And I'm very glad that GZDoom now has interpolation for the 3D models and such, for like between frames. Because I remember when I used to play so I don't know how many of you are familiar with this GZDoom mod called Zan. It's a really old ass mod.
Oh, I remember. It's for ZDoom GL.
Yeah, there's ZDoom GL even. There's a GZDoom version that you can play though. It's kind of buggy compared to the original, but it still gets the idea across. But beforehand, there was no interpolation at all with any of the 3D models before. So like they would just like choppily animate kind of like that,
Which is fine which is fine with a sprite, but not so good on the model.
Yeah, but I mean, unless you play Quake or whatever, but but no,
Quake,
now it's like apparently now there's actually like interpolation for like movements between keyframes and such, so it looks way smoother now, which is ironic because I was also featured back in ZDoom GL way back in like 2000, and now we finally have it, like 20 years later or so.
Hey, Nash, while you're here, I was just wondering, I don't recall which version of GZ it was that recently introduced the new animation manager. Anything about that?
What animation manager is that?
Oh, I don't know. It's just the system for handling animated textures has been changed. AnimDef still loads into it, but it's different, especially with camera textures for some reason. Like I've got these portals that rely on a camera texture being run through a shader, basically, mask kind of thing, and the camera texture does not animate unless it is forcibly redrawn off screen in an ACS script.
That might have been one of the casualties of some internal texture managing refactor. So. Have you tried reporting that to the forum?
I'm not much of a forum guy these days.
I'm reporting it to you now, Nash. Consider it reported.
Well, ideally, there should be like an example file, and just describe what worked before and what doesn't, so that we can take a look at it.
I could get around to doing something like that.
Yeah.
The thing is that I found a way to subvert it anyway, so I was kind of like, but the frame rate is not friendly to me.
So do you reckon like reverting that cat would actually help us performance-wise?
Maybe. I mean, it just wouldn't have to be drawing a big scene image like scaled down off screen every game tick.
Yep. Oh well,
I still think it's worth reporting because sometimes Graph just misses these things, like it's just an oversight. So I figure it's still worth reporting. Like
once
have it actually looked at.
Once we've all got some free time in 2026. Hey, I was trying to think of Eris of a music related question, but it's tough because you just make music for whatever engine.
You get-
But I
mean, you can ask Mia as well. 'cause
yeah,
I
sorry,
do
actually,
too.
both. Yeah, no, that was the back of my mind actually, because Metal, you're a composer too. Obviously, you've got a few other pies that you got fingers in. But one thing that is interesting, because I've just recruited another composer for Age of Hell, and he's made this track. It's fucking beautiful. And I was talking to him about how we were going to loop it and what Primeval did for Bastion of Chaos, where he made the loop so it had an intro, and then the main body of the song, and then when it looped, it cut out the intro. That's an ACS function. Is there anything?
Can't you just use OGG tags for that?
I don't know. That's just my interpretation of it. Anyway,
I thought
It's just a tag you put.
Sorry,
in
I thought that was
file stuff. I think.
he
Right?
made it sound like it was an ACS. Anyway, that was just what got my brain worrying. I was like, hey, this is this thing that, from my interpretation, sounded kind of specific to GZ. I'm 100% certain you can do it in other ways, but is there anything around, like, be it sound design or composition or music that it is specific to GZDoom that you think is a good thing or a bad thing or anything, like, or is it just a case you just make music?
I'll let. All right, I guess I could speak a little bit on this because we had to deal with some stuff regarding like sound issues and like music composition stuff. So we were getting an issue for a while back when I first joined the team. Like I want to say back in maybe I don't know, January or so, where like we were having issues with like looping causing like popping with my stuff. And I remember we were initially they were suggesting like, oh, you're just doing like you're not doing the best job like composing.
You suck.
I don't know. But and I know it wasn't my mixing because I used to actually do composing for. I used to actually port tracks to like a Smash Brawl or whatever, where it requires you to use the exact sample size, and I used those exact same tracks, exact same sample settings in those players, and it didn't have any popping, so I knew it wasn't me,
right?
Because I can already test for that,
Mm-mm.
and so I didn't actually. And so it turned out actually an OpenAL update came out, which apparently fixed a popping issue, and then it was gone. So OpenAL can just be kind of weird at times.
Right.
I have a lot of respect for like what the guys there do with it, but yeah, it was being weird. And as soon as we updated it, it was mostly gone, just perfectly.
What I'd like to add for the sound system in GZDoom is just that it's actually running on a separate thread from the game sim. So what that essentially means is you cannot rely on it for like super synchronized like stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's actually noticing that too, because like we were even trying to like start like we were trying to start like a song at a very specific point using like ACS, so that when you load
No.
into it,
Yeah.
That's just gonna fail.
and then, it was just being kind of off every like it's generally around the same area. And at this point, I'm just willing to settle for that. I'm like, okay, this is good enough.
It's good enough. Yeah.
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 So
generally,
if anyone think
when-
you're making like a rhythm games on GZDoom, yeah, forget it.
Oh yeah, no.
Never. There is a rule, Metal, that I think I forgot to tell you. Never rely on sound and music for the play sim. That's the one thing I think Project Absentia kind of does with the subtitles for the subtitles. But it's either that or I hard code every single number. But then again, it's attached to the UI scope, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Because that's not going to affect the play sim.
Yeah, I'll say as well with mixing for like sound effects as well, because I've been doing some sound effect work for GZDoom. I don't know if this is the case with any other engines, because I haven't really worked with many other engines for sound effects. But what I noticed for sound effects with this is that usually I have to compress the living fuck out of them at times, in very weird ways.
Yep. Definitely. Absolutely.
And like, it's like I'll just do like specific things. Like I had like a rocket launcher sound, and it was causing some ducking issues with it. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I literally just scooped the mids. It sounded pretty much no different when I listened to it in Audacity or whatever at the time. And then I put it in game, and it just it sounded way better. And it like just the clipping and like the ducking was gone. I'm like, what the? I don't get it.
For your information, older versions of the OpenAL, which shipped with GZDoom, actually had some tampering, like some kind of an EQ or compression baked in, and there was nothing you could do about it.
Yep. Again, I have a lot of respect for the people who work on OpenAL, because it's like spatial audio really easily, and you can do crazy stuff like that. But like it could be a pain to work with at times. And I completely understand why some people wouldn't want to use it. You know.
And for clarification, I'm not sure if the sound baking thing was actually like a conscious choice on the OpenAL developers, or if it's something that was done for GZDoom. Like I don't remember the details, but yeah, older versions of the GZDoom had this really weird like EQ curve on it. And,
yeah, I still think there's something kind of like that, but it's not like it's. I can work with this, you know. Like I can at least get it to be sounding, you know, fine.
It's always about working with what you got. But yeah, Eris,
well, that's exactly it. Is the original samples are so low quality that sure people have been trying.
Eris, did you have anything sort of experience in terms of any of your sound work and music compositions, getting into a GZDoom based project?
Well, I mean, a few points I just want to adjust some what was said earlier. So with like looping, I think you embed those in the metadata of like a NOG file. So like it's like a parameter called like loop start and loop ends. I know Primeval's done those for elementalism as well. I still need to do them for my tracks there. I think with looping, like you have to have like your sample, like your waveform, like on the center line at the point where you want to loop it. Otherwise, that's how you get the pops.
Yeah, you basically have to make sure. And like when it was being explained to me, like they're explaining it in like a bunch of terms that I wasn't familiar with because I'm used to like doing like audio engineering stuff. So like when I saw when someone, I think it was Nash actually, who sent a link actually in the forum thread.
Yeah, it was. You have to put on the zero crossing.
Yeah, the zero crossing. When I saw it, I was like, oh wait, that's phase. Christ. Like if I just heard like phase, it would have been like, oh, like at 0 degrees phase, because like most people when you're studying audio engineering, like you hear about it as phase. So I'm like, oh, phase, right. And so like, you know, now I just do that for all my tracks, and I haven't had a single looping problem ever since the OpenAL update.
Yeah.
Ironically, I don't understand phase at all, but
yeah, it's kind of
so that's so yeah, that's the one thing. One thing I'd like for GZDoom is like proper dynamic music.
Oh yeah.
Because at the moment, like I know there's like a way of doing it, but like it's so hacky at the moment. Like I think one of the ways I saw it suggested was to have it as like as an ambient sound, but then you can't control it from the options menu or something, and it's like it's not really there at the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say like for as far as sound stuff goes, like, you know, for instance, I'd love like, you know, like at least like a crossfade, so I could have 2 tracks playing at once and like a way to crossfade between them, you know. So like for instance, like if I'm like playing like a level and I go in the water, then it would crossfade into the water track smoothly. So there's the water variation of it, you know. So something kind of like
pretty much
you could do it in a hacky way.
Yeah.
You could do it in a hacky way, as you were saying before, but it's just like, you know, like that's like.
They'd have to play the sounds from actors.
I come back to and I like it.
They'd have to play the sounds, and one of the disadvantages of that is that there's no streaming on the sound.
Yep.
So if you load in like a 5-minute song or something and play it as an actor sound, there'll be a skip, you know, as the audio is loaded into. Memory. Yeah.
And you can't configure it on the options menu either. So like if you go to adjust music volume, it won't do anything.
Yeah. Now I don't know how it works for like tracker stuff. Like I have like a friend actually who works in tracker music for his stuff mostly. For what he's doing. And the reason he chose to like compose his game for tracker music was specifically for looping capabilities and such, to make it like way smoother and cleaner. I don't know how GZDoom handles tracker stuff at all, because I haven't experimented with it at all. So there might be a way to do it with like a tracker stuff if I was willing to learn one, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think tracker support is there, but I don't make trackers myself, so
it doesn't really PR Boom supports trackers, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
So it's like an
GZDoom
old feature.
Yeah.
Lots of the old things.
I wanted to actually talk a little bit before the night is out about a lot about my escapades in Z script, and as one of the first developers.
This is black magic voodoo we're getting into here.
Yeah, I'll try to talk about it in as layman's terms as possible. But not that I'm trying to put anyone down, but it is.
Oh no,
it is
scary.
Very much. It is very much advanced stuff.
I'm stupid. Don't worry about it.
It's and I do have mad respect for like what Zan and Sgt Mark IV and everyone else who still uses ACS and Decorate and stuff and all that, and that's all fine and good. I love that. But when I saw ZScript, I'm just like, this is interesting. As someone who comes from a C# background, it's a programming language, of course, but I think I did was I converted my first indie project to daytime that I had released publicly to in recent history to I converted it all to ZScript. One of the hardest things was the documentation was absolutely lacking. You think it's bad now? Back in the day, there was absolutely nothing. You were on your own. I believe me, Marissa Kirasami, Senzus, there's a few others, but we were the ones who kind of adopted quite a lot of the originals. There's a lot more probably now, but I remember when I saw this, I'm like, this is going to take off. I just got to figure out how to do this. And what I did was I converted every single thing from Decorate and ACS into ZScript just as a proof of concept. I wasn't even going to I didn't really anticipate I'd get very far, but within about a week or so, I had it all completely working. And I was it was very fun to learn that. What I found was interesting is you could write your own action functions and save, and just your own functions in general. You could override how the tick works. You could add stuff within every tick. You could have it do, there's just so much you could do with it without using, load ACS or hooked into Decorate. And I thought that just to me was just an interesting thing to do. I really love just being able to experiment with that. And I was able to start doing things that I couldn't do, like rewrite the morph system so you could keep your armor and your items. Because there's a thing with GZDoom, I think, I don't know if Nash could explain this to me, but it's weird, like, in the morph, when you lose your armor when you come back. And I didn't want that to happen. So it's, I believe Marissa Kirasami helped me with that code.
Mark has a
Wait,
good
for that.
Mark, this whole time has this look like I can do that in Decorate.
Yeah, I can do that with sticks, sticks and crayons.
I already did this on Decorate, both for Brutal, for GZDoom, and then doing this for Head of Fate. You can do this.
I will go and build this out of wood.
All right, I'm in no way diminishing that, but at the time, I had no way.
Yeah.
Let me explain how I found out how to overcome this.
Mark is a hipster. He's very old school.
You just need to think out of the box.
This box is comfortable.
When you are going to activate the morphine action, before everything else, you find a way to store how much armor the player has, how much health the player has, and that's how you do it. First, before you give the player the morphine inventory, that's going to turn the player into another player class. First, you give the player token items, like token health, token armor, and stuff like this. Yeah. So, like, let's say, you run a check. You give the player inventory items of the type token health, and for this, you return the value of the player's health. So if the player has 63 health, you are going to give the player 63 token health items. When the player morphs back into the class it was used to, you do, what's the player base health? 100. So you make a calculation of 100 minus 63. Then you calculate how much health the player doesn't have. So you damage the player for 47. You damage the player for 47. Then you get the health the player had before morphing. That's how you do it. It's very simple.
Very simple.
These are users though. What year is his tokens?
That's
it's
kind of the thing.
It's 1999 and Skulltag just came out.
So that's fine and all, and that works. But I wanted to find a way to do it without tokens.
Like, I think, like, like I said before, we've got a variety of games, variety of styles, variety of coding backgrounds, like experience with the engine.
It's all good.
It is. That's the thing. And I actually think this is actually one of the strengths of GZDoom. Is got fucking Sgt Mark here who's been making shit for it for over a decade, doing these like, let's be honest, hacks, old school techniques, because you want to be Xandro supported as well. So there's actually a clear reason for that, which is good. So like it's not just I'm stuck in the past. It's like, no, I want to meet this compatibility for a reason, and that'll give your product a lot more playability because it's co-op compatible. You can create deathmatch modes, anything. Like there's a lot of shit that opens up. That's fucking fantastic. So you got that, and then you've got say something like Age of Hell or Project Absentia, more Z script focused, pushing to the limits of the advancement of the port, and trying to utilize every new feature in any way possible, and both ends of the spectrum are fantastic, and that again that carries back into the Doom modding community. With you got people make things for PR Boom, you got people make things for vanilla, you got weird experimental ports popping up, and I think that is a genuine strength of GZDoom, is that it carries that all comers, open arms, whatever you want to do, you can do it kind of ethos, and even to the point, and Mr. Cat's a bit of an expert in this, is you can create side scrollers and shoot 'em up games and weird isometric ARPGs or RTS games or Worms Doom. Like there's all, you can pretty much do anything, and it can be weird and wacky and advanced, or esoteric and weird, or old school, or just terrible. It's all terrible.
I will say one of the things I found it's kind of hard to do in ACS and Decorate was fine controlling. Like I'm sure there's a way to do it in ACS and Decorate with like one of the things that
Mark will find a way. Mark will be interjecting about 30 seconds. This up.
Right. Just hear me out, right? So in Project Absentia and Sgt DX before it, the player's supposed to glide, so you jump up and then the player kind of glides as you hold down space bar or jump key, whatever you want to do. And I'm sure that's doable in ACS and Decorate, but once I got the math down, it was actually, and the exact timing down, it was just kind of easier to do it in Z script and not ACS and Decorate, because the code for Decorate would have been a lot of this, and the ACS would have been a lot of this. Z script was a lot smaller. That said, if I was targeting Xandronum, I would definitely find a way to do it. And Metal has actually said some of the maps that we're doing are really good for deathmatch, and a lot of people agree with them on that. So who knows? Maybe after Project Absentia is done, maybe I will make a free standalone deathmatch thing for Xandronum.
And that's the cool thing. It's like if you want to go and then make a Xandro compatible one with a few select maps, or new maps for co-op or something like that, you can do that, and that's the beauty of this engine. That's great.
I was gonna say all of that's assuming, of course, that multiplayer support doesn't eventually get picked up somehow.
I think we're all quite keen on that.
I'm hoping for that. Yeah.
Nash
definitely does.
I'll let you guys know if any development happens in that area.
I'm definitely
Oh hell yeah!
Please do.
And look,
Single clap.
Yeah. We are today we have become a meme. So I think we've probably explored what is reasonable for a panel show like this, and I really want to thank you all for coming on. Relatively short notice, and
absolutely,
it's been a lot of fun, and I think every project here is something that's going to have a lot of interest in it, and we're probably entering what could be a bit of a golden age for GZDoom. I don't think it probably doesn't have the legs. It's not going to be an engine people are going to be using in 10 years' time. But there's Nash, stuff we've talked about, and potential of forks. There's a good core there that is a lot of fun to use. The barrier for entry is non-existent. The tools to make GZDoom product, Ultimate Doom Builder, in particular, are some of the best out there. There's definitely something there to try and preserve for the future, and hopefully people like us can do that and shine a big spotlight on it as a viable game engine. So the last thing I want to do is we'll go around the room, and I want to hear what your favorite thing about GZDoom is. We'll go stroke some egos. Eris, you first. Just comes back.
I don't know, man.
I hate it. Yes.
Now
it's going to put you on the spot.
I'm always I'm a sucker for pretty visuals, so I guess what GZDoom can bring to the table in that regard is, very much appealing to me. So, Age of Hell, all the stuff that's been coming out of the GZDoom scene in the last few years really has just been something. And even before that, I remember when Winter's Fury dropped back in 2012, that was
it still looks good.
Amazing. Yeah, that was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in Doom at that time, and definitely since 2018, the bar's just gone up and up.
No,
really. It's incredible what people
sure.
are doing nowadays, and as someone who loves more atmospheric, shiny visuals and all that, I think that's my favorite part of GZDoom, and that's more as a player rather than as a developer, because I don't really interact with the engine itself that much in what I do.
You still need to go and hit Motherload for dropping you in this. All the beatdowns, I'll hold him down. You can kick him.
I'm gonna fuck his shit up.
Don't threaten him with a good time. No, I think it's me. I definitely agree that GZDoom can look very, very good, and it's a big strength of it is its visuals. And you're right, the last 3 years in particular, I think, have been a bit of a renaissance for it as a port, and it's registering high in official things like the CAC Awards, but also just the amount of projects that are being made. You've got people like Stormcatcher dropping Coma Moonlight, and things like Lumine, and real iconic pieces of work popping out of the community, and then the games as well. Middle Neon, your turn. Favorite thing?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. My favorite thing. I guess it's just if I really had to say something, I guess it's just the accessibility and the versatility of the engine. Honestly, just how versatile it can actually be. So for instance, before I even did a YouTube channel back in 2019, I was actually experimenting a bit with some Doom mapping. I mean, they're all awful, obviously, but I mean, the ability for me
I will be the judge of that.
Don't. They only complete. They're not even completable. So that's how bad they are. But anyways, no, it's the ability for me to just be able to pick it up and understand it very easily, or be able to show my one friend who was he was having some trouble because he was trying to map with Slade of all things, for Christ's sake, and I'm
I know two Slade mappers.
No, I'm
it's a Linux thing, I think.
Yeah, Linux.
I mean, if you're on Linux, pretty much, yeah. But I just show him multiple Doom movies, oh, so it's the fact that you can just easily pick it up, look up a bunch of tutorials on mapping and stuff, and just get something going that's your general idea. It's really nice, and then you can take that knowledge and then carry it over to say what we're doing here at Project Absentia. I might possibly even be trying to work on something of my own after Project Absentia is all said and done, and that type of stuff. Possibly, who knows? We'll have to see. But or maybe I'll be helping someone else out. Who knows?
Exactly.
But you see, that's the thing. It's just very flexible and such, and I really appreciate
it is
being as flexible as it is.
Immensely easy to get into, and I think huge shout out to Boris and the dev team for Ultimate Doom Builder. Previous iterations Doom Builder, even back to Doom Builder 1 and 2, they were still really good editors, but it's a tool made for a 26-year-old game, 27, that is still actively maintained, and and pushed out bug fixes at a rate of not you report a bug to Boris, it will be fixed in a week and pushed out to the build that. That is
speaking
fucking
of that,
service.
actually, yeah. we found a bug a while back where, well, I don't know if it was a bug or just an oversight, where we were using the Doom 64 lighting for a while. We ended up having to remove it because it was screwing with bright maps. So that's like a whole other thing. Where like it would overlap on top of the bright maps, and so then the bright maps wouldn't appear. But no, anyways, we weren't able to copy and paste like the sector value of Doom 64 lighting for a while, so we just recorded it, and then instantly like that they just fixed it.
Bang! It's like that's easy. I can
And it
put
was
that in.
just bang. All I'm gonna say, please give us a dark mode for the.
There have been several requests, and I will work on Boris.
Yeah, even Trenchbroom has it now.
I've got Boris pretty close in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Nash,
Boris!
what's your favorite thing about GZDoom?
I would say one of my most favorite feature of GZDoom is being able to work with directories, folders directly.
Yes. Fuck yes.
So it's such a time saver. It's perfect for iteration. You know, like you just create a folder, you drop stuff in it, and off you go. And this is why like you can make super fast stuff with GZDoom. Folder. Yeah, the folder workflow. That's one of my most favorite features, I think.
No, like the what that does to your workflow is unreal. So like, particularly when you fold in things like Ultimate Doom Builder's new texture export function, which I've made very liberal use of because I love my sector art, but sector art's pretty taxing on FPS. So now I can make my pretty designs, big elaborate pentagrams, whatever, export it. It's a file in Windows Explorer. I just move it into the Texas folder, bang, I can load it up straight away and play it.
Exactly.
It's so good. Yeah. And even like real simple stuff like, I want to copy this texture but rotate it. Like Windows Explorer can rotate Texas for you. You make a copy, you rotate it, bang. It's that. The PK3 structure translating, is it just a pure Windows directory setup is really good.
Yeah. Definitely one of my most favorite features.
Yeah, and supported both by GZDoom as a file structure to read and Ultimate Doom Builder as a resource packet. Yeah, that synergy is just beautiful. Sanya?
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about GZDoom?
Everything that everyone else has said so far, but for me, it's also just the fact that coding new enemies, coding game logic, coding a bunch of different things is just relatively easy, whether you're using the methods like Zan and Sgt Mark IV, or using Decorate and ACS, or using like my methods or ZScript, or just using good old-fashioned dhacked. You can use a whole bunch of a slew of different methods to create something and combine it with what Nash, Aris, and Metal were saying. You pretty much can just come up with something. You can prototype something, within 24 hours, maybe less. It's just really fucking amazing.
Like, you can spit out an asset, and then code it so fast. And I've watched MrCat go through that, and like not even 20, like we're talking like 3 or 4 hours, have something in game and interactable, and you can test it. I think that for me, from what I've seen, the strength of that, how quickly you can do it, is how quickly you can get to a testing state. Is this a good idea? Does this work? Does it look good in game? Yeah. Yes, no, maybe. And a lot of other engines, I imagine it's a longer process to get to that point, and you could possibly potentially waste more time on a idea that doesn't work. Mr. Sgt Mark. Probably a battle between you and Zan, who's the oldest hand, and I'm not sure if Zan's still awake, but we'll find out soon. What is your favorite thing about GZDoom?
The flexibility, the whole high is this, like, Zandrone is, GZDoom is like...
My favorite thing about GZDoom is Zandrone, no.
So,
cut from the team.
Like, I don't know. It's like the Dark Souls of first-person shooter engines. Like, it's easy to get into, but the skill ceiling is infinite. You can be your programming skills can be as bad as you can know nothing about programming. You can be literally that guy that everybody likes to make fun of, yandere dev. You can be literally yandere dev. You can go to GZDoom without knowing absolutely nothing and make some AAA quality stuff. Like, yeah, it's the dual engine, and without knowing how to program absolutely anything, you can make like a house, a wooden hut that has some. You can destroy the walls of this hut and has some structural integrity and make the floor collapse without like some frostbite kind of stuff without knowing anything about code. Do all of this in decorating code. It's as your creativity is your limit. You don't need to go to a programming school. You don't need to go to a game design school. You can make your game like really easy in a way that no other engine, Unreal can't provide this, Unity can't provide this, and all this flexibility and this power, and the fact that it's an open source engine. Like you can make a game on this engine, and this game is going to literally outlive you. You're going to die, and this game is going to continue to exist, and people can make mods of this game. Continue talking about, it's literally post-human life. It's post-humanism.
Definitely,
it's the next step in human revolution.
This is the future. No, I think you raised a couple of really good points there, Mark. GZDoom modding. If you think about it, like as a Doom engine to make map sets or whatever, it is the lowest barrier for entry. It's so easy to get into. The tools are there, the resources are there. There's so if you want to get to custom stuff, there's just fucking bucket loads, more than you could use in a lifetime of custom assets already out there to dive into and have fun with. But that skill set, that upper limit, is pretty much the extent of your imagination and your ability. Like you can push that engine into almost any kind of game style, any visual concept, any like deep mechanic, like you say, destroying build wooden hut, destroyable walls, like that whole like health value that sector properties can have, and it's incredible.
Geometry.
Yeah.
You have examples like Total Chaos, which is a full 3D game with modern graphics. You have, for example, like Mortal Kombat Doom, which is literally
that's so cool.
Made in Zedrono.
Yeah.
It doesn't even use Z-script. It uses a very basic programming language, and you can make a perfect copy of Mortal Kombat and play multiplayer. This is an example of how far you can go as long as you have the imagination and the willpower to do it.
And working with Xandro, that's a 6-7 year old iteration of it, and like what like you say, the things you can do even in that are almost limitless. It's very good. And like the other point you made about moddability, so we all know Doom's very moddable. We're all making new games though. Our games will be moddable. Like easily, so people will be able to like replace assets and swap shit out and tweak things and create their own maps. And Age of Hell will have an SDK pack, a dev pack of the resources for people to go and do whatever they want with. And I think, like you say, that'll continue whatever we make way into the future. And I look at something like Proteus as probably the only game of the retro shooters or any kind of FPS that I've seen really dive into that dev community and really fucking prioritize it. Their editor shipped with their alpha build. Which is ridiculous.
You can. This does kind of have something similar, but it's not on the same level as Proteus.
It's not promoted.
Yeah.
Proteus made it front and center. This is important to us. And people, all respect to the Proteus devs and General VV, Dragonfly, very, very talented. People are already making, much like Doom, people are already making like more impressive stuff because they can dedicate 6 months to one map, which you can't do if you're trying to make a commercial game.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's like the selling point is these like expansions and mods and like all these like crazy map packs and stuff. It's not even the base campaign. That's not even the selling point.
It's like you don't like the base campaign? Well, here's 180 maps that have already been made. You
can just download it on Steam Workshop with like a click of a button, and then boom.
Yeah. $20 you get more content than you could ever play in your life. Yeah, that's great. And that is Doom in a nutshell, the real core concept. And I talked about that with Ramiro on the podcast the other week. What's carried that IP for so long was the community. And by making a game in GZDoom, we can all tap into that to a degree, which is it's very cool. Zan, you still with us?
Yeah.
Holy
well,
shit!
you guys have made some pretty good points.
Shout out to Zan of Hedon.
Whoa!
Dev, he is
still kicking.
Still up. It is, I think, 5:30 a.m. Something stupid.
It's already light outside.
Yep, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having it. And also, second toast to Zan for being the front runner in it. And I think we can really actually point to Hedon as a big part of why we're all here today having this chat.
Absolutely.
And that is not nothing. That is definitely something.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, but what is your favorite aspect of the engine?
I mean, as Nash pointed out, it's the workflow thing. It's like it's a fast engine. It's I can just sweep out Photoshop, draw a texture in 30 minutes, then put it into the builder. Like drag it in the texture folder, then check it out in the builder. Switch between visual modes. The builder itself is really great because I work with some of this like bulky 4 viewport wireframe kind of software, which is always like a slog to work with, and then you have like GZDoom builder, which is like clean, and you have this like nice plane, and you can switch between 3D view and 2D view very easily. And also Mark made a really good remark with the fact that it's very moddable. Like, fuck me, I was a few months ago, I was literally, I loaded the Dusk for Doom mod in Hedon, and I was like playing Dusk in Hedon like without even making any effort. Like, it's crazy,
So cool.
Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it's like this one time someone played like Scoot Hard, the pony game with like Hideous Destructor. I don't know why you would.
Yeah.
But you can.
Zig Shadow played the Hideous Destructor on Hedon maps.
I have something to say about that, but I'll wait for others to finish first about the whole modular thing.
Okay, we'll go back to
Well, I mean, that's it for me. Go ahead and say it. Unless Cat has something
No,
to say.
we'll ask Mr. Cat, my friend and fellow Age of Hell madman. What is your favourite thing about GZDoom?
I mean, it's really hard to come last after everything that's already been said.
Taking all my points.
I think the culmination of everything is true, and that because of that, it's led to having a community of enthusiastic developers that all communicate. We've got a big community that is, for the most part, very, very friendly and willing to like put in the effort to help each other. Yeah,
because I'd actually met. I think you were the one who raised it originally, like the community around not just Doom but also GZDoom, and that is actually that's not nothing. That is definitely something, and I can hand on heart say that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that community, getting involved in it about 3 years ago, and just generally having a very positive experience. And I think the Doom community's existed for several decades. It's been around for a long time. It's gone through various iterations and forms and shapes and vibes, and it will continue. But I quite like where GZDoom as a community is heading via new games. And it's definitely something that I'm very focused on. And we've got something like Realms Deep where there are a shitload. Let's be honest, like a big pack, a real force of new IPs, new content, commercial quality games about to be presented to the world on a pretty big stage. Like, let's not downplay what we're doing. 3D Realms is big news. But that's not a one and done. It's not a flash in the pan. It's something that has been built on, by people like Zan with Hedon and Sgt Mark with Brutal Doom, and Nash working, as a dev, and Eris making music for years, and then new cunts like me just coming in and taking everyone's shiny toys. No, it's great. And like, if someone like me can like get involved that quickly and find a home, let's be honest, that that's a fucking huge tick. So while there will always be people you don't get along with and personalities that you clash and negative elements in any community, I think overall it's a very positive one. And I think the people gathered here, and we'll add in people like Nextech and Salaka and Korzodon with Relentless Frontier and Supplice with Mechadon and Cage, other GZDoom based games. That's a serious cohort. That is some weight that we can both push out there into the world, but also draw people in. And I think, I don't know if everyone watching us know, but I've started a game studio, and part of that, the reason I wanted to do that was to build on that community. And I think it's fucking fantastic, to be honest. I love it.
Indeed.
All right, Nash. We're coming to you last.
Oh no, I was just this is like a random thought I had. One of the double edge, I guess, like, like you were talking about how GZDoom is so easily moddable and you can like mix and match mods and stuff like that. It can actually be a little detrimental for like standalone game designers, because like like for example, you design your game a certain way, and then someone just downloads your plays your game and then adds like, I don't know, hideous destructor or whatever, or and it completely, it completely like changes the balance of your game design. So it can be
it's a double-edged sword, like anything.
Yeah.
And like a part of actually one of the slightly related, but I did a podcast on like playtesting, the art of playtesting, and like what came out of that was there is an onus on the, at that point we're talking about mappers, but as a game designer, and because our products are eminently moddable and compatible with other existing mods, like this is you make it clear this has not been tested with other mods, or it's been tested with these and they work, these ones they don't, and how much you want to like specifically dive into that as the creator, entirely up to you, but just make it clear. If you make it clear in writing, you like this one on the mod, it's fucking on you. I don't care. Don't report any bugs to me. You'll still get people that do it, but to be honest, they just need to be swatted aside. And that's not unique to what we're doing. That's a problem with just the Doom community in general. There are people that will play your map with mod X, be it a Brutal Doom or a Hideous Destructor or a Supercharge or whatever, and then complain about how hard it is or how the performance tanks, or like, because I had one of the worst, like, kind of, or the strongest feedback criticisms I got around Bastion Chaos from an FPS perspective was someone playing it with Beautiful or Smooth Doom, one of the two, and it tanked FPS because it had so many more gibs. And once they got rid of it, it's like, oh, okay, it's fine. So that's not unique to our experience. It's not unique to our games. It's just,
sure.
But we've come from that background, so I like to think we are prepared to deal with those kinds of things. But it's a very good point, Nash, that that modability is definitely a double-edged sword that needs to be managed. Yeah.
So anyone looking to like make new games, just be prepared for that, like mentally. Like your game is gonna be so open to modding, and you can't really control what players want to put into their experience.
As this is a promotion of GZDoom as an engine for new games, that is a thing that you do have to go into open-eyed as a developer. If you're going to use it, be prepared for, once you've released it, people just fucking with the code, opening it up and ripping shit apart.
Good. I already made a mod for Sulaco that changes the blood to red, and the game is not even fucking released yet.
Just waiting, just like...
Sorry, next tick.
Exactly. So we've got one of the devs doing exactly that. Go pick at his house and complain and throw eggs. Case in point. But it's also a strength. It's a good thing. It means that your game will have a lot more replayability. You can do things like AJ Hello's doing, is release your mechanics as a mod to do the reverse and go and inflict your game on other people's work. I think that is something to work towards. Very good. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Again, we've got Eris from Stellar Valkyrie. We've got Metal Neon and SanyaWaffles from Project Absentia. We've got Nash from Darkadia, also GZDoom Dev. We've got Sgt Mark of Brutal Fate. Zan from Hedon. And TheMisterCat of Age of Hell. And I am your host, Bridgeburner. And thank you all for coming. This was an absolute pleasure. And I wish you good deving. I'm going to get drunk.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
I'm already drunk. Joke's on you.
Cheers.
Well, I better catch up.
Cheers, good news.